Becky, thank you for joining us today. For our audience, could you please introduce yourself and tell me a bit more about you and what you do?
Yep, so I'm Becky Eckersley. I am Lead Send Advisor for Kids Planet Day Nurseries. I've been in childcare for 15 years, working in SEND industry in early years for the last 5-6 years. Qualified as an early years teacher, and then I've done my Masters in Early Childhood Studies. But child development and working with children with SEND has always really been my passion.
Yeah.
Some things I'm really want to advocate and champion, that everyone has high aspirations for all our children. And I just think it's a really interesting time at the moment to be in SEND in the early years.
Yeah.
With, you know, the children, the increase in children that are coming into our settings, the complexity of needs, and the changes with all the educational entitlements at the moment. So it's a real exciting industry to be in, and I'm glad to be part of it and championing and advocating for supporting all of our children.
You've worked extensively across various settings, and with that local authority supporting with SEND. How do you navigate the challenges of providing consistent care and support across those different regions, and particularly with varying resources?
We work across 70 local authorities as part of the SEND advisor team for Kids Planet. 3 of those local authorities are in Wales. So it is a definite challenge, and it is a broad remit. It is a postcode lottery, and it shouldn't be like that, especially for funding, especially for support from the local authorities. But I think our role as the SEND advisor to Kids Planet is to advocate for all our children and know what they should be getting. And I think even though it is that postcode lottery, even though support for LAs is very different, it's for us to say, you know, that's not good enough. Like you say, driving that change, having that voice, say that's not good enough. We know, another local authority is doing it different. And sort of we like to maybe share best practice across our local authorities as well, to make sure that if some LA is doing it great, then another LA hasn't thought about it, we might share those ideas. I think our team provide that consistency. So potentially if a local authority doesn't come into the setting and provide support, we will offer that support in that way. So we might tailor our team's support to match, so that all of our settings have got that consistency between the local authorities and with our team, and we sort of work in collaboration that way.
Where we just said about the early years sector, having that confidence and desire to move the agenda forward. How do you find that? Because working across 70 local authorities is incredible, by the way. It must be logistically.
It's a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just my brain.
Yeah, I bet I can absolutely. I mean, I'm struggling to get my head around it. That's just an immense number. But do you find that you get the same appetite for change across the local authorities? As in, are they sort of keen to move forward with the agenda, or do you find that there's still quite a bit of resistance to introducing consistency and good practice?
I would say it is very varied.
Yeah.
There are some local authorities. I feel like with the change in government, with the increase in the funding, with younger children coming in, they're realising that their workload, their caseloads may increase, because now they might have to support younger children with complex needs coming into settings that they haven't particularly supported in the past.
Yeah.
So I think some LAs are very proactive. They've realised the agenda. They've realised there's drive for change. They realise that earlier settings are speaking up now, and they want to get on that bandwagon with us and be part of that agenda for positive change. Some can be a little bit more stuck in their ways, and it may be who leads that local authority. But again, I think that is our role, and we are quite vocal. I'm quite vocal and very passionate. Kids Planet are very vocal, and I think those ones that aren't moving, we will let them know. The times are changing. You do need to be flexible. Gone are the days where there's 1 or 2 children with SEND in the settings. The funding processes, the paperwork, there's so much paperwork. The processes and elements we had 10 years ago, they don't work for our settings now with large cohorts of children with SEND. So, we do push them, we do ask them to be flexible, we do ask them to get on board with the agenda. There are voices in the industry, it is changing, it's going to change, and they do need to work with us, because we're in a different totally different time with our cohorts of children and needs of children. So we've all got to keep on our toes and keep moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so much now in terms of new science and new technology that is supporting that message, in the sense that we have to be more agile and treat everything uniquely as it deserves, but with the same kind of care and empathy that we've always come to have in the sector. I think I'd like to just come back just ever so slightly,
okay,
because I think the work that yourself and your team are doing at Kids Planet it is incredible, and I see this a lot across actually some of the larger nursery chains that we work with. But sometimes there's can be a perception or a particular kind of stigmatism when it comes to sending, particularly in nursery chain provisions, where there's perhaps a bit more corporate practice and a lot. So how do you ensure that that your settings are seen as leaders? And I think somewhat you are at Kids Planet, but how do you ensure that happens to be a case in terms of SEND support, and how perhaps could aspiring early years providers improve their approach?
I believe, although I'm biased, I believe that Kids Planet are leaders in the larger group of nurseries. We are one of the only groups I'm aware of that have our own SEND support team, and I think we changed the narrative within settings to be very positive towards neuro-inclusive practice. I think we definitely put SEND at the heart of what we do. It's not, I think in the industry it tends to be an afterthought when there's a change in policies, practices. SEND's always maybe a few months behind, but Kids Planet really do put SEND in the heart of everything we do. Like I said, there's not one or two children anymore. We're talking probably a third of our cohort. So you've got to be in the game now. It's up there. So we have our SEND team. We get out there in the industry. We deliver a lot of training to our team. We make sure, I know we've talked about that there's a different workforce at the moment. So we really make sure that our workforce is understanding child development, so they can then early identify children. We advocate for our children, we advocate for our parents, we don't take no for an answer. And I think it's just knowing what support is out there. You're not alone in this. I think a lot of settings may be a bit fearful because they feel like they're alone. If they are smaller chains, there's a lot of local authority support out there. I don't know how they would aspire. It's hard to think of how would somebody aspire to be like we are, but I think just putting SEND at the forefront. Read Cheryl Warren's book. Look at Dingley's practice. They're doing great stuff. There's loads and loads of support out there. And just really upskill yourself on, sensory integration. Think about your environment. This is the sort of things that we do.
I think that's the fundamental underlying is put SEND at the heart of everything you do. Make it one of your at the forefront of your thinking, not the afterthought.
Not an afterthought. Yeah, and that is, I think, what our ethos really tries to be.
The interesting thing about SEND now and all those elements associated is that we know that discovery is better or diagnosis is better. And scientists are telling us more about our bodies and our brains. And it, to some extent, when we've just talked in the past, we said that SEND is only ever going to increase. And the need to be able to support positively and proactively is something that's only ever going to need to increase, but perhaps resources as well can need to come up at a pace as well, I think. And that's the thing, because you've got one that's sort of going up at a pace and one kind of not. But I just wanted to come to you and say, or ask you, what have been some of the most effective ways that you found to embed a neuro-affirming culture across such a large network of nurseries?
Yeah, so it's definitely changing the narrative. When I came in, we definitely put SEND at the heart of everything. And we went for a whole setting approach.
Yeah.
I think, again, gone are the days of that's the SENCO's responsibility. That's that person's one-to-one responsibility. That is not the case anymore. We don't really like to talk about SEND practitioners and SENCOs because everybody should be knowledgeable.
I love that.
And that is our real true ethos at SEND. We say, like safeguarding, SEND is everybody's responsibility. So we really ensure that, gone are the days when people said, SEND's not my remit, I don't really know what I'm doing. That's not okay. At Kids Planet, that's not okay with me. So SEND is everybody's responsibility. If you don't know, you need to get on the training. You need to upskill yourself because it is increasing. And I think that sometimes people are just unsure. Knowledge breeds confidence. And I think by upskilling people, they then have that knowledge and the confidence to support these children. So that's what I would say, really. Consistency, training is really, really key across all of our settings. Having a clear graduated approach, so clear policies and procedures, I think is really key. And that's what we have, 7 CLAs, going back to that sort of first question, 7 CLAs. How do we manage our processes and our policies when you've got so many different components coming in as well? Yeah. So just having real clear graduated approach of what do we do for assess, what do we do for plan, what do we do for do, and how do we do our review? And I think that is really key, and just getting everybody on board. And in our workforce at the moment, we've talked about this in the past, it does look very different. I think we need to show very quick wins. That's what my team will go in and do. People want to know what's in it for them, what's the impact for them, how does it work for them, how does it make their life easier and better, in difficult, with large numbers of children, challenging complexity of needs. So we need to go in and show quick little strategies with resources. Kids Planet are working with Hope, so we do a lot of work. We're trying to get new resources out there. We're working with the product team because we know, again, new needs are coming into settings and we don't have the resources to support. So we are trying to drive that change as well. But just knowing your children, I would say, is really key. Knowing your children, knowing their profiles, working with other teams. And there are really great resources out there. You don't have to spend a lot of money. I think that's a misconception of bigger groups as well, that we have a lot of money to put out there, and independent nurseries maybe can't do that the same.
So sort of spend wisely, not wildly.
Yeah, spend wisely. Yeah, just get to know your children, understand their motivators, their interests, their sensory profiles, and just, get to know them, and then you can make those reasonable adjustments. Small little changes will have huge benefits for our children throughout the day and impact our team. Show them those quick wins, and then everybody will be on board with loving SEND like we do. Yeah,
absolutely. It's like what they say about small stones in water can make the biggest ripples, aren't they? It's the
we don't have a magic wand. That's what our team say. We don't have a magic wand. We've just got simple strategy ideas that embedded consistently can really help.
We're really interested in your view in terms of what are the key qualities that practitioners need to develop in order to feel confident in supporting children with SEND. And how can leadership in larger organisations encourage this?
So one thing we have really noticed at Kids Planet is some of our teams coming in at the moment don't have that really secure foundation in child development. Unfortunately, we are working with a lot of apprentices at the moment, which is great. We're building that industry back up. But I think if they're not secure in child development and sort of typical milestones, then that early identification is often missed, and it's not early, it's, you know, later on. So we are stripping everything really back, you know, with our training academy, with our early years advisors, and we're really embedding that secure, strong child development knowledge, and then we're building up from there. So then we would have a look at that again, that graduated approach. Do they understand what early identification means? Do they understand what early action means? Do they understand the why? Again, because people aren't going to do extra paperwork if they don't understand what's the end goal for the children, what's the end goal for the family. So we do a lot of work around, you know, ensuring that you're filling in this piece of paperwork, you know, the children's individual education plans, but what's the end result for that? Yeah. You're a cog in like the whole team effort of this. So we do a lot of work trying to get them to understand what they're doing, why they're doing, and again, those real quick wins to get them on board. We do things around, you know, meal times can be really challenging, especially if you've got a lot of children that don't want to sit down, they're up and about, you've got team on lunches. So, you know, I think we just need to show them that if you really understand the children, and I think that's been a key message in all of my answers, if you really understand the children, provide what's motivating, what's safe for them, don't let them fit the mould of what you're already doing, make those reasonable adjustments to them. So we do differentiated meal times, find out their safe foods, create, you know, just only offer them, get them a wobble cushion to sit on at meal times, your meal times, you know, revolutionised. And I think that is what gets our team on board to understand our children, makes their lives easier. And I think that's built up from that child development knowledge, understanding the why.
Yeah, so I guess essentially what happens, they see, not just see, but feel and experience the fact that you know, yourself and the team are innovating change through the business. Not just saying we need to adapt, or we need to be flexible, we need to be reasonable. Actually, introducing initiatives that create an environment that does really support that message. One of the things that one of the many things that I've come away with from my conversations this last couple of weeks and this weekend is that you know, children develop and learn best when they're comfortable with themselves. It's something that comes across from yourself and every expert that I've spoken to. It just strikes me that we somewhat have lent into, certainly for 40 or 50 years, quite a structured and conformist type of educational system, with perhaps early years being the sort of the equidistant shining light of creativity. But how can we ensure that the work that you're doing now and everybody else that we're all doing now to support and develop our children, our future generations, to be the best version of themselves, to celebrate themselves? How can we get that message carried across into when children go into education, particularly mainstream education? Look, I certainly don't slight mainstream education, but there's certainly, again, another message I hear is that actually we really want our children to feel accepted, and mainstream is certainly part of that kind of that experience and that journey to get.
Definitely.
So what can we do to work? It feels like we need to work better with the primary education. Or, you know, the DV or someone to bring that together. So
this is a debate I actually have personally and professionally, because a lot of my friends are primary school teachers. So we often sit around a Sunday roast talking about this. But I think we have definitely seen an increase in deferred children. It's something that I try to support year on year to get our numbers down, because our role is to, you know, get them ready to move on to the next phase, like you say. Children that we see nowadays, their needs may have been met in specialist provision previously, but there's just not those places at the moment. So children, you know, with complex needs are entering in our mainstream. But what mainstream primary schools are forgetting is we're a mainstream setting ourselves. They've come from a mainstream provision to enter into their mainstream provision. So we do a lot of work with our primary schools, especially those children that are on education, health and care plans, or more complex needs children. So we do, enhanced SEND transitions, and we really make sure that we start that journey very early, and that we are sharing all the strategies that we are doing, what works for these children. We know them inside out. We want to pass that message across. Like you say, when children are really comfortable, that's when they are there, they get the most, they're willing to explore, learn, develop. We want all of that amazing awe and wonder for all of our children. So we do a lot of transition meetings, a lot of sit downs, get the parents involved, and just get our message across. This is this child, this is what we've been doing, this is what he likes, these are his challenges, this is the strategies we use, and say it is over to you now. But we do see some of our children that have been accessing full time with us, only then move on to primary school, and they do then they get put on like an hour a day timetable, and it is really soul destroying. So there is work to be done. You can see there's work to be done. The numbers of deferring children increasing. There's work to be done. But it is that saying, this is what we are doing, and you can replicate that, and getting them to have that positive, neuro affirming, inclusive narrative that we, are really trying to drill down into the early years, and we will get there. Yeah. They are changing, and we will get there.
I'm hopeful too that we will, because I think, as Gail said, the agenda's kind of progressed very much more forward. It's whether policy and practice can align better, I think, and move away perhaps from that slightly more conformist structure that we see in primary education, to allow for the creation of really good learning spaces for all our children.
Yeah. I do think it's not working. The teaching's seeing it's not working, so I think they are saying we need to adapt our approach here, and again be flexible in the way we are setting up our classrooms, the way we're structuring our lessons. All these children need space for breakouts. They need breakout spaces, they need outdoors. We know the benefits of outdoors for our children is amazing for SEND. It's a time for change, and that's exciting.
Powerful as well, I think.
Yeah.
So you've spoken about, or we've spoken about, how much the earlier sectors progressed in terms of SEND, but there's still more to do. What specific shifts or initiatives do you think would make the most impact in the near future?
I definitely think with the so many local authorities we do work across, we do see such a difference. And that really has an impact on the children, and that shouldn't, and the families. So I think there needs to be a consistent approach, and I know that is coming in terms of, aligning funding, aligning processes, cross-borough children, that may be in one setting but live in another LA. That is a real barrier. Some of our children, that's one thing that our team really help with, because we have all those links and all those connections. So that is a real barrier, and again, it shouldn't be that you live in one local authority, you chose to go to a nursery in another, and that's a difficulty for you. So I think everybody working together, having a consistent approach, funding is needed to be addressed, and just putting SEND at the heart of everything. Like I said, I feel like when there are changes, SEND is always on the back foot to be thought of, and it just needs to be at the front of everybody's minds. I'm biased, but it needs to be at the front of everybody's minds. I think the work that Catherine McLeod's doing with Dingley's Promise, and lobbying governments and driving that change forward, she's really doing amazing work to get all of our voices out there. So I think people just need to listen to Catherine, and hopefully...
But not just Catherine. I mean, there's so many I think powerful, enthusiastic advocators now for SEND. It's not, and the interesting thing that occurred to me the other day was that it's not that there's never not been. I think there's just never been a stronger time that the agenda has meant so much.
Yeah.
That now voices like yourself, Catherine, Sarah McKenzie,
Cheryl Warren. Yeah.
Alice Sharp. So many great voices out there that are now really truly being heard, and so many more voices are going to join that as well. And that really excites.
And I think events like today, where those voices get together at the guest panel. I've worked with Catherine and Cheryl, but not always in person. I think people by themselves can go so far, but people together can really make a huge difference. I would like to see just more consistency and for SEND to be up there and at the forefront.